Alright, this video will talk about the clone stamp tool. Clone stamp tool can be found right here. It looks like a little rubber stamp that you would press down on paper. There's also a pattern stamp tool, but we're not going to talk about that in this video. Alright, clone stamp tool basically works like this. You have a cursor just like a brush. You can use the brackets to increase and decrease, but the button you want to focus on is the Alt button. If you hold the Alt or Options on Apple down and click anywhere in your image, you will pick up that part of the image, and then you can click and paint it somewhere else. And what you're really doing is picking up the entire image. So as you can see, I could paint the entire image there. But that's not really how this is used. This is used in lieu of issues you have when your other correction tools, your spot healing or your patch tool, just won't quite work. So what we have here is a picture of Red Rock Canyon that I took, and we have some people, and I like the people up here. Right, it helps give perspective to this. However, these people, especially with the orange and red, they kind of distract, and the pink, they distract. So I want to remove them from the image, but I don't want it to look fake. And so if I were to use the spot healing, right, I can get a decent result, but clearly, like, that's not, I mean, you can see that looks fake, right? Same as removing these people. Right, it just doesn't look good. It's copying this from over here, and it just, that's no good. So we're not going to use that tool at all. And in fact, the patch tool isn't all that better. Right, if I click over here, right, you're really just pulling over something, and it's just not going to match. So instead, we are going to use the clone tool. And the clone tool will clone over something that is more appropriate. Now in the options bar of the clone tool, just like a brush, you can change the size and the hardness of the edge. We actually want to probably have around 50% hardness. We don't want it super soft. You can change the opacity and flow as well. And this is the most important thing. You have sample. Where are you going to sample from? The current layer and below, or all layers? Now, we only have one layer, but if we had multiple layers, we may want to use both. And in fact, we're going to edit smart by creating a brand new layer, Command-Shift-N or Control-Shift-N. And what we're going to do is make sure this is current and below. So what this will do is when I go to sample, that's when you hold the Alt key down, turns into these little crosshairs, and I click and sample something. It's actually sampling from either layer. And then, since I have layer 1 selected, my blank layer, I'm going to only paint in that layer. That way I'm not actually destroying the image. So the big trick with the clone tool is finding the right thing to pick up and paint over so that it looks natural. So this gentleman is in front of these rocks, and so I think I'm going to work on him first. And so something like right here, except I'm going to make my brush a little smaller. I'm going to pick that up, and let's kind of just paint in right there. Now you can see I went a little too hard edge there. You can see that edge pretty well. So we're going to back off on this and maybe go to like 20. Let's try that again. This might not actually be the best place to sample from. Yeah, okay. So instead we're going to sample somewhere else. And we need, one thing we could do is we can go really small and we'll zoom in, and we can work a little bit. Now it looks like he's standing in front of a bunch of bushes. So if we wanted to, we could just sample some of the bushes. The only issue with doing small sampling here is that you end up creating patterns real quickly. Right, and this might look pretty terrible. It might look like a person covered up by a bunch of moss. So we're going to combine it a little bit. I like this line right here, and so we're going to add in just a little bit and then kind of smooth that over so it looks like a rock is there. And this we can just extend a little bit into his leg. And if we combine it here, if I pull the flow down a little bit, then what happens is it kind of helps blend two things together. Okay, and so the clone tool is not a simple, especially when you're using it for this purpose, it's not a simple, easy tool to just slap on. You really have to have some artistry to this, right? And to know what's going to look good in terms of edges and in terms of where, especially on a natural terrain, where your rocks are, where your plants are. So as you can see, I'm slowly building this, and I have no idea if this is going to actually look good. Back off a little bit, and yeah, like that looks pretty muddy. One thing that you can do is find a similar area in terms of where it's in the shade. For example, like over here. And if I sample from over there, let's see if that makes it look a little bit better. In fact, let's get a little bit wider here. Yeah, so in fact, sampling over there, that looks more convincing as part of the canyon than anything else. Now here's the trick. These guys are right up against this edge, and I don't really want to get rid of this edge. So this is where we can use our selection tool. And we'll bring that down. And I don't want to be on the new layer. I want to be on this layer. And so I want to try and pick up this rock as best I can. I got to go a little smaller. That way, I won't be actually deleting the rock at all when I go to change this orange and this red. Okay, doing a little bit there. Oh, and that's her shoe. I don't want to get that. So I want to just go right down to the edge here. Alright, that all looks pretty good. Let's get rid of this. And then I'll just select and mask just to make sure it looks good. Okay, and then I'm going to Command Shift I to invert it. So now I've selected not this space, but everything else in the image. You can see because you have the line, the marching ants going on the outside. Okay, so now when I go to paint where that guy is, I'm not going to have too many problems. And I'm going to do the same thing. That seemed to work out, is using this shadowy area over here. So we'll pick up that. Whoops, I'm on the wrong tool. Switch to cloned stamp, and we'll pick up right there. And we'll start painting in what hopefully will be a convincing pattern. All right, now since we're kind of committing to this, we have to sort of get rid of this stuff. So I think what I want to do is use a little bit of this guy up here. All right, and again, we're just trying, oh, you know what I'm doing? Just see what I did there? I started painting on the background. We don't want to paint on the background. Let's try that again. Ooh, Command Shift I. Okay, there we go. Alright, and then I believe I grabbed right here, kind of brought these rocks in. We'll just stop short of there because I still like that to be in the way. In fact, these, so we want to kind of round that edge there, so we need something that looks similar. So this little rock right here, but it's too bright. Maybe grab that. There we go. Let's have this. In fact, let's maybe finish that out and see if that works. Okay, that actually seems to, look at that, that looks really nice now. I like that. Okay, we're going to keep going with that one. And then here, I think this is pretty well, although what I'll do is just give it a little bit more of a point right there, and then cover up the similarity to these two cracks. All right, maybe finish that off a little bit. There. I think that looks pretty convincing that those rocks were there. And then we just have her to take care of. Now we have the trouble with the plant being in the front, but it shouldn't be too bad. One thing we can do is just use this line right here to get rid of her feet. Now because there's some similarities here, you just kind of offset just enough that you can't see the similarity. So there's some rocks. I'm not sure if they put something there because that doesn't look like a rock. Looks like a man-made thing. I can also get rid of this, since I'm not worried about that edge. I will come back and address the red of that edge in a minute. So we want to again find a rock similar to it, and I think right up here, this looks pretty good for right in here. Right, just enough to cover. Right, so her head's kind of there. I think we can just kind of, oops, let's go back here. Let's just kind of bury her head in the black markings here, and then we'll finish out that edge. Okay, now notice there's some patterns there, so I'm going to pop this up and kind of take care of them. Okay, so now let's back up, take a look. Looks pretty convincing to me. All right, and then let's finish with some of the details, like this red right here. We want to kind of get rid of that red. Simplest way for me is to go in hue saturation, go into the reds, pull the saturation down, or actually what we'll do is we'll change the saturation to more of a yellowish orange, and then pull it down a little bit. Okay. What we can do then is reverse the layer mask. Remember, all the adjustment layers come with the layer mask. To reverse it, you just make sure the layer mask is highlighted and hit Command or Control I. Okay, and then all we're going to do is take our paintbrush with white paint, since we have a black mask right now, and we're just going to paint a little bit along the edge here to remove that. Now you can see it's graying it a little bit. So we'll go back and just do a little bit of correction so that we can't really notice that gray. A little bit right there. Okay. And there we go. We have successfully removed that with the clone tool.